After my mission to make the second male lead fall in love with me failed, I rewrote everyone's memories, replacing myself with Charlotte Lane as their wife and mother. With my role erased, I started a new life, got married, and had children. 5 years passed peacefully, until the system's voice abruptly broke the silence in my mind. Host, the original target has regained his memory. He's gone mad, and is coming to find you. With his son? I froze, turning toward the doorway. Standing there were Axel and his son, their eyes wide with disbelief. Why did you abandon us? Axel's voice cracked, anger and anguish intertwining. And why does everyone insist that Charlotte is our wife and mother? The system alarm blared in my mind just as I was on the phone with my precious son. Cyril said the teacher taught them to make bread today, and he secretly brought one home for Mommy. Clyde's playful tone came through the line, pretending to sound upset. Why not give it to Daddy? Daddy can eat it too, Cyril replied in his sweet, childish voice, but Mommy has to eat first. I couldn't help but laugh at their exchange, a warm smile spreading across my face. But just as the moment felt perfect, the system's cold, mechanical voice interrupted. Warning, warning. The target is out of control. The apologetic tone that followed made my heart sink. Host, I regret to inform you that the original target has regained his memory. He is out of control and is on his way to find you with your son. This was an oversight on my part. If you wish, I can arrange a death for you free of charge, so you may start anew in another world. Death reset. 5 years ago, when I discovered that Axel harbored an unattainable first love in his heart, and even our son wished she were his mother, I considered it a death reset. But now, as I looked at the family photo on my phone screen, I shook my head. No, thank you. My life now is wonderful. The love I once thought unreachable has become my reality. I won't give it up. I am a player. 12 years ago, I received a mission to enter this parallel world and win over the second male lead, Axel Norman. The task was simple: make him give up on the heroine and fall in love with me. Once I succeeded, I could return to my original world and start anew. At the time, a tragic accident had left my real body in a vegetative state. Completing missions in parallel worlds was my only path forward. The system warned me that Axel was a main character, strong-willed, and nearly impossible to sway. To reach him, I became a certified nutritionist and spent 3 months crafting personalized, balanced meals just for him. When he broke his leg chasing after the heroine, I was by his side, offering comfort and support, helping him through rehabilitation. Finally, a year later, he proposed to me, calling me the salvation of his life. In our 2nd year of marriage, I gave birth to our first child, whom I named Eden, a name symbolizing joy and happiness. By the 3rd year, as Eden turned 1, Axel held my hand and spoke of his dream for us to grow old together, surrounded by generations of family. I began to suspect the system had malfunctioned for not declaring my mission as complete. But I didn't mind. In fact, I thought, perhaps living out my life in this world, surrounded by happiness, wouldn't be so bad. That was until one ordinary night. Axel had forgotten to log out of his chat on the computer. A message appeared on the screen. Hey, I'm back in the country. After everything I've been through, I finally know what I truly want. This time, can we make it work? The message was from Charlotte Moon, the original female lead of this world and Axel's unattainable first love. 7 years ago, she left him to study abroad. In a desperate attempt to stop her, Axel had a car accident and broke both legs. I stayed by his side, helping him through a year-long rehabilitation. I thought their story had ended long ago. I was wrong. Their connection had merely simmered quietly over the years. The message appeared in their childhood friends group chat. The same group where the guys, who usually called me sister-in-law with so much affection, now teased. It hasn't been easy, Axel, but you two star-crossed lovers finally made it. When Axel and I first got married, I'd asked him to add me to that group. He refused, saying it was just a circle of childhood friends and no spouses were ever invited. Besides, he said, you've already met everyone in the group. It's just a bunch of guys talking nonsense. I had believed him. When I checked the group members, they were indeed familiar faces. Except for Charlotte. The group admin's profile picture was unmistakably her, hair loosely pinned to one side, revealing her delicate profile, her head bowed in serene concentration as she copied scriptures. Axel's profile picture, by contrast, was of a scripture page. I had once teased him about it, saying it looked too old-fashioned. He'd replied that it was his way of praying for me and our son. A wave of nausea churned in my stomach as I stared at the refined calligraphy. I felt nothing but disgust. Charlotte's return had lit up the group with excitement, their chatter buzzing for what felt like an eternity. Finally, after half an hour, Axel cautiously broke his silence. Luna has been very good to me and my family. I can't bear to hurt her. Someone pressed further. But do you love her? You don't, right?
I didn't need to read the rest.
I didn't care about the reactions or his weak protests. All I saw was his response. No, I don't love her. When Eden was 4, I became pregnant with our second child. At that time, Axel was locked in a power struggle with his older brother. To help him secure critical financing, I traveled 80,000 kilometers a week, surviving on just a few hours of sleep each night. The financing deal was a success, but the toll on my body was too great. I suffered a miscarriage due to overwork. In the hospital, Axel held me tightly and said, "You are the person I love most in this life." But his words carried a bitter truth. While he loved me the most, he didn't like me. For Axel, love was a responsibility, a habit, something dependable, but far from the heart-stirring passion I had longed for. Without genuine love, the system could never declare my mission as complete. It all became painfully clear at that moment. Unable to resist, I reopened their private chat history. Axel had meticulously saved every conversation he'd ever had with Charlotte, spanning 15 years. Not a single message had been deleted. 7 years ago, around the time we got married, he had messaged her. "I'm getting married to someone else. Are you sure you won't come back?" Her reply was simple but resolute. "I have dreams I can't abandon." 6 years ago, shortly after Eden was born, he sent her a photo of our child. "I'm giving up. You said you didn't want kids, but if you come back, this child could be ours. Charlotte, I'll treat him as if he is a son born by us." As the years passed, their conversations became increasingly frequent, their bond deepening in ways I could no longer ignore. 7 years of marriage, and every year, Axel would take Eden to Australia to visit her. It had become their yearly vacation tradition, and they followed each other on every social media platform. When they were together, they looked more like a real family than we ever did. My mother-in-law even gave her the bracelet that symbolized being the daughter-in-law of the Norman family. Meanwhile, Axel's childhood friends, who used to shower me with compliments and call me sister-in-law, mocked me behind my back, calling me a pitiable cuckoo in another bird's nest. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly at the absurdity of it all. Turning to the system, I asked, "So, does this mean my mission is a failure? Can I reset and move on to another world for a new task? After 7 years of effort, I don't want to end up heartbroken and still have to return to my vegetative state in my real world." The system hesitated. "Host, your current points are insufficient to transfer to another plane of existence." Perhaps feeling some guilt for not warning me earlier, it added, "However, I recently reviewed a proposal from my supervisor. Now that the second male lead, Axel, is married, Charlotte's story as this world's female lead has officially concluded. A new target will soon appear in this world. If you successfully clear the new mission, it will still count as fulfilling your original task. However, the difficulty level of this target is significantly higher. Does this new target have some unattainable first love or idealized ex?" I asked. "No, he's the male lead, a typical protagonist in male-centric narratives. His heart has no room for women." "No women? Perfect. I've had enough of dealing with first loves. I'd much rather pursue a cold and emotionally detached brute." I instructed the system to create a new identity for me so I could start over. Before leaving, I used the last of my points to alter everyone's memories in this world, ensuring Charlotte would become their rightful wife, daughter-in-law, and sister-in-law. The system hesitated again. Do you want to change your son's memories too? Yes, change them. Not long after Axel sent that damning message, Eden sent him one of his own. I heard Aunt Charlotte is back. Dad, can she be my mom? She's so beautiful and knows everything. Not like Mom, she only has a bachelor's degree. Even Alex's mom, our neighbor next door, has a master's. Father and son, separated by thousands of miles, one on a business trip, the other at summer camp, were both longing for the same woman. The weight of my grievances pressed into the night, flaring into a storm of absurdity. I took out the family photo from my wallet, lit it with a match, and tossed it along with the lighter, watching as it burned alongside their passports and every trace of our shared life. Afterward, I accepted the system's new mission, to pursue the new male lead of this world, Clyde Weathers. Clyde was indeed hard to win over, but he was sincere. Every increase in his affection showed in concrete, undeniable actions. The first time his affection value rose, he had been chased into the deep mountains, and I saved him. He told me bluntly, aside from money, I won't repay you in any other way. Yet, with no signal in the mountains to transfer money, his affection value spiked, and he ended up chopping all the firewood in my yard the next day to repay me. Later, I deliberately took a bullet for him. He knew my actions weren't entirely selfless, yet when his affection value rose again, he spared no effort, using all his resources to bring down the culprit responsible. When his affection value reached its peak, he proposed to me. Lunarite, he said, I know you might have ulterior motives, but I don't care. Marry me, and I'll make sure you get everything you want. Marriage, children, and being with someone who truly loves you. It all seemed so simple and effortless with Clyde. One day, I couldn't help but ask, why do you like me? He gently stroked my hair, his eyes softening as he replied, because I can't help it. In that moment, I realized something profound. Truly liking someone isn't about being unable to bear losing them. It's about being unable to resist loving them. Are you coming home for dinner tonight? Clyde asked over the phone. Over the years, as my studio grew and my work became increasingly hectic, my appetite had decreased. The only time I could truly enjoy a meal was when Clyde cooked for me. I'll come home for dinner, but I want crayfish, I said. Okay, I'll make it for you, Clyde replied in his usual pampering tone. We chatted a bit more before hanging up. As I turned around, I saw Axel and Eden standing at the door of my studio, their expressions dark. 5 years had passed, and Eden had grown taller. His features were beginning to mirror his father's more and more. The 11-year-old boy stood in the doorway, looking down at me, and asked, Mom, who are you talking to on the phone just now? Axel didn't say anything, but his curiosity was evident. I quickly locked my phone and put it in my bag. That's my privacy. And, young man, you've got the wrong person. I'm not your mother. Eden looked shocked at my rejection. He stepped forward and clung to my arm. I didn't get the wrong person. You are my mom. Mom, I miss you so much. Why won't you admit it? Tears welled up in his eyes as he held on to me. 5 minutes passed, but I remained unmoved. His persistence began to annoy me. Finally, Eden couldn't bear it any longer. He snatched my bag and began frantically searching through it for any evidence that I was his mother. He opened my wallet, but the photo inside was no longer his. He unlocked my phone, but the lock screen no longer displayed his birthday. The moment I decided to start a new life, I had the system change everything to Charlotte's. He couldn't find any proof that I was his mother. To everyone around me, and to the world, Axel's wife was Charlotte. As for me, I was just a complete stranger. Eden burst into tears, and I quickly tucked my bag away, turning to face Axel. Sir, are you the child's parent? I asked calmly. Children need proper guidance. It's impolite to go through a stranger's things. I have somewhere to be, so please take your son and leave. Before I could finish, Axel covered my mouth, his eyes bloodshot with anger as he demanded, Why? Why did you abandon us? Why does everyone say our wife, our mother, is Charlotte's. There was a clear physical strength difference between us, and I struggled to free myself, but I couldn't break free from his grip. Just as I was about to bite him, my phone rang from my bag. The cheerful sound of Clyde and our son singing came through, our family song we sang during a kindergarten performance. I hadn't wanted to set it as my ringtone, but Cyril had threatened to run away with our dog Lucky if I didn't. I wasn't worried about him, of course. As the male lead son, he had bodyguards even while building sandcastles outside. But Lucky was old, and I couldn't bear the thought of it suffering outside. Hearing the ringtone, Eden stopped crying, and Axel's expression seemed to brighten. This ringtone is The Family of Three. Luna, you must miss us and this family, or you wouldn't have set this song as your ringtone, right? I rolled my eyes and slapped his hand away. My apologies, my husband and son are tone-deaf, so the singing is a bit of a joke, I said as I took out my phone and answered Cyril's call. Sweetheart, what's wrong? Do you miss Mommy? My voice was so forced that even I could hear how fake it sounded. On the other end, the 5-year-old seemed startled at the tone of my voice, as if he had made a huge mistake. He stammered, Mom, how did you know? I didn't mean to scare Xiaomei with the grasshopper. Dad said fried grasshoppers were delicious, so I gave her one. What? You scared a classmate with a grasshopper? No mother could stay gentle for more than a second. I wanted to yell, but instead, I muttered angrily, Why did your teacher message me and then retracted it? She must think that my son is hopeless. I snapped, Let your dad take the phone. How can a father teach his son to give grasshoppers to girls? Before Clyde could answer, Axel grabbed the phone from my hand and slammed it to the ground. What, sweetheart? Luna, your husband and son are right here. The silence hung in the air for half a minute. My anger faded, replaced by a cold indifference. I had once thrown Axel's phone in a fit of rage when I discovered that his contact for me was saved as Ms. Wright. It happened when our son, Eden, had just returned from Australia and contracted a foreign virus. His fever spiked to 40 degrees Celsius, and he groggily murmured in his sleep. I thought he was calling for me, so I rubbed his belly and dialed Axel's number. The phone rang, but he was out in the garden without it. As I approached to give it to him, I saw the caller ID, Ms. Wright. Ms. Wright? How could I be Ms. Wright on his phone? Just 3 months ago, I was still saved as wife. My intuition told me there was something off, something I couldn't ignore. I picked up his phone and tried unlocking it with various combinations. My birthday, our wedding anniversary, our son's birthday, my mother-in-law's birthday, and finally, Axel's birthday. All failed. Axel returned to the room just as I was going through his phone. His brows furrowed when he saw me. What are you doing? Our son has contracted a foreign virus. The family doctor said we need to take him to the hospital immediately. Give me the phone first. Why has my contact changed? I asked, now feeling the weight of the situation. Give me the phone first, he repeated, his tone sharp. In the ensuing struggle, I threw the phone to the ground. Why do you take our son to Australia every year? Why can your mother, your father, and even your friends go, but I can't? Why has my contact changed to MS, right? Back then, I thought it was just an error, but deep down, I knew it was something more. For 6 years of marriage, Axel took our son to Australia every year for vacation, but I was never invited. The vast southern hemisphere seemed like a place I was banned from. I could travel to the UK for work, to France for exhibitions, or to Africa for aid projects, but Australia? Nope. No explanation, no reason. The anxiety and confusion overwhelmed me, and I collapsed to the ground, sobbing loudly. Axel walked over and looked down at me with an air of condescension. Luna, don't be crazy. It's ugly. How ugly was I? I collected my thoughts and looked up at Axel, now furious and disheveled. You're really ugly, I said. His mental state had deteriorated over time, and he was haggard, thin, and still wearing the suit I had custom-made for him 5 years ago in an attempt to reconcile. The broad shoulders of the suit now seemed empty, making him look frail, almost comical. Hearing my words, Axel's pupils constricted. He looked at me, stunned and incredulous. Luna, what are you saying? I didn't answer. and just walked away. I was grateful that Axel had taught me an important lesson. Not all questions deserve answers. Behind me, I could still hear them shouting, "Luna, have you lost your memory too? We are really a family. We are really your husband and son." James, the security captain and one of Clyde's former mercenaries, slapped Axel across the face, saying, "You're crazy." When I got home, Clyde was shirtless, cooking crayfish in the kitchen. Hearing me enter, he let out a sigh of relief and greeted me warmly. "My darling is back. I made 3 flavors of crayfish today: garlic, egg yolk, and spicy. There's something for everyone." Little Eden came over to help me with my bag. They all assumed my call had dropped earlier due to anger. The delicious scent of crayfish filled the air. I walked into the kitchen and said, "Next time, don't teach your son such nonsense. You ate grasshoppers back then because conditions were tough, but now the environment is heavily polluted. Don't let him end up with a stomachache." Clyde nodded playfully. "Got it, my lady." That night, Clyde pressed me against the bed, his breath warm on my ear. "I heard someone was bothering you today." My body tensed, and I quickly replied, No, silently cursing myself. James was one of his men, so Clyde probably knew immediately about Axel and his son entering my studio. Clyde tugged at my hair playfully. "No, it was just 2 irrelevant people. I didn't want to worry you, so I didn't say anything." I gave in, letting myself snuggle into his arms in a conciliatory gesture. When I first received the mission, the system had warned me that lying and concealing things would only complicate matters with Clyde. People who had emerged from the darkness loathed betrayal the most. But after 7 years with Axel, I had developed a deep-rooted fear, and I couldn't fully entrust myself to another man. Clyde's hand slid from my neck to my waist. "Irrelevant people, baby? Are you sure?" His words stirred something within me, and I tightened my grip on his waist. He bit my collarbone, leaving his mark. Who those 2 people were, and whether we had any previous connections, was probably uncovered the second time Eden called me. Clyde hadn't found anything yet, but I had subconsciously lied. And that lie, however small, would probably make him angrier than the truth. As I lay beneath him, my emotions surged in the darkness. He covered my mouth, his fingers slightly spread, allowing only the softest moans to escape. "Sweetheart, don't let me find out you're lying to me. Or else, I don't know what I'll do," Clyde murmured in my ear as the first rays of morning sunlight filtered into the bedroom. The system had clearly told me that Clyde loved me deeply. After 5 years, his affection level for me hadn't wavered, even the slightest. I still didn't fully understand why. He trusted me completely, tolerated all my quirks, and would even die for me, but he couldn't fully open his heart to me. I couldn't leave until my mission was complete. The next morning, when I woke up, Clyde was already gone. On the dining table, there was my favorite strawberry milk and a sheepish apology note. "I know it was wrong of me to bite you last night, but you shouldn't have lied to me subconsciously. Let's call it even. I don't want to argue with you. I'll bring you a small cake when I get back. Wifey, don't be mad at me." He had drawn a little figure begging for forgiveness, clearly something Cyril had forced him to draw. I could imagine the father and son making those sheepish expressions together. All the unpleasantness from yesterday melted away. I tucked away the note and was about to call Clyde to soothe his anxious heart when my phone suddenly rang. A strange yet familiar female voice came through the line. "Is this Ms. Wright? Would you be free for a chat?" It was strange because I had never spoken to her directly, but familiar because I had heard her voice countless times in her chat history with Axel. In a private room at a high-end restaurant, Charlotte, dressed in a Channel suit, looked poised and gentle. Upon seeing me, she quickly gestured for her assistant to take my bag. "Ms. Wright, right? I heard my husband and son visited you yesterday."
I'm so sorry.
"I've been so busy with work these past few years that I've neglected them, and they've gotten their memories mixed up, thinking that their wife and mother is someone named Luna, right?" She sighed as she poured me a cup of tea. "Actually, I don't mind you laughing at me. They've mistaken so many people over the years. This sort of thing happens several times a year. In the end, it's our fault. I apologize on behalf of my husband and son." Our teacups clinked as I finished the fragrant Earl Grey tea. I knew exactly why she wanted to see me today. Even before the system confirmed that Axel and his son had regained their memories, I had already suspected that Charlotte, as the original female lead of this world, must have experienced some loosening of her own memories. In the stillness of the night, she probably often dreams of her past, dreams filled with aspirations yet unrealized. Her current wealth, status, and position all belonged to another woman. She was merely a third party in someone else's marriage. Despite the countless paternity tests, her husband and son continued to insist that their wife and mother is someone else. Over time, even she began to doubt herself. It seemed as if the original mistress of the Norman family is really named Luna. I took a sip of tea and set the cup down. There's no need to apologize. I lost my temper yesterday and threw your husband and son out of the studio. If there's nothing else, I should be going. My husband is waiting for me. You have a husband? At the mention of my marriage, Charlotte's expression shifted, a flicker of joy in her eyes. When did you get married? Do you have children? She added casually, trying to hide her curiosity by running her hand through her hair, which sparkled with a diamond ring. I just felt an instant connection with Ms. Wright, so I was curious, she added. Seeing her flustered demeanor, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. I used to be just like her, deeply troubled and insecure because my husband was distant and my son wanted another woman to be his mother. There was a time when my husband and son would mysteriously disappear, and it seemed like they had another home I knew nothing about. It's a cycle of life. The forbidden territory from 12 years ago had returned, now playing out in Charlotte's life. We got married 5 years ago, and our child is already 5. I replied to her question. Hearing this, I could see the tension leave her body. The rest of the dinner went by unusually smoothly. Charlotte had wronged me in the past, but I had made sure she paid for it in other ways throughout her life. She mentioned how Eden was very thoughtful, always making her a warm compress whenever she had stomach cramps. I told her that Cyril had even learned to make nourishing soups for me, bringing me 2 bowls every month, though I could never finish them. Charlotte smiled gently, just as we were about to finish, agreeing that we were both happy now and would no longer disturb each other. The door to the private room was pushed open. Axel dragged Eden in with a face twisted in anger. Who told you to disturb her? Just moments before, Eden had been the picture of a dutiful son in Charlotte's eyes. But now he was lashing out, kicking and punching the woman in front of him. You want to tear our family apart again. It's because of you that Mom doesn't want us anymore. You're the one who's destroying everything. It's your fault, all your fault. Charlotte's face drained of color, and she lost her composure entirely. She shoved Eden away. Enough. Grandpa, Grandma, even the nanny at home all told you that I am your wife and mother. But you refuse to believe it. We do DNA tests every month. 4 months now. You've been searching for Luna. Do you really not believe that we are families? Tears streamed down her face. The breakdown I had suffered years ago was unfolding before me now in another party, and I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sorrow for her. I reached for a tissue to wipe away her tears, but before I could, Axel intervened. Don't go near her. She's unstable right now. Be careful she doesn't hurt you. He stopped me from approaching, as though he feared Charlotte might harm me. It was almost laughable. Was that why he had kept me from going to Australia all those years ago? The irony was suffocating. I handed Charlotte the tissue, then turned and slapped Axel across the face. You disgusting lapdog, I spat, the words burning with years of pent-up frustration. If I had stayed to face them previously, if I hadn't left, would he have treated me the way he's treating her now? He protected me when he liked me, then tossed me aside like a rag when he didn't, as if he couldn't even stand to look at me. Just thinking that I once wanted to spend the rest of my life with someone like him makes my future seem so bleak. Grabbing my bag, I turned on my heel and stormed out, leaving them behind. I never wanted to be entangled with people like that again. Axel and Eden caught up with me at the entrance of the villa, breathless. Luna, you might not believe this, but everyone's memories in this world have been tampered with, including yours. 5 years ago, we were really a family. You were truly my wife and Eden's mother, Axel said. Eden stepped forward and grabbed my arm. Mom, don't leave me. I'll be good from now on. I wanted to tell them I hadn't lost my memory, that it was I who had tampered with their memories. But before I could speak, a dog barked, and Cyril's small voice cut through the tension. Mom, do you have another family behind Dad's back? Clyde stood at the entrance, holding a cake in his hand, with Cyril and Lucky beside him. His expression was unreadable. The first time I met Axel, I told him I was already married and had a family of my own. He hadn't believed me. But now, my entire family stood before him. Axel stared at us, confusion and pain in his eyes. Who are they? I stepped forward, linking my arm with Clyde's left arm and holding Cyril's hand with my right. Let me introduce you, I said. This is my husband and my son. And this is our dog, Lucky. The dog barked twice in greeting, making Eden take a step back. Ironically, it was Eden who had once adored this dog. When he was 6 months old, he couldn't be calmed by anyone. Only Lucky, with its bell, could stop his crying. At 3 years old, when he was bullied by older kids in the neighborhood, Lucky fiercely protected him. But when he turned 4, he suddenly claimed to be allergic to dog hair. I had insisted on taking him to the hospital for a checkup, but Axel stopped me cold. Is the child more important or the dogs? With that one sentence, Lucky's fate was sealed. Later, I discovered in the chat records that Eden hadn't been allergic to dog hair at all. It was Charlotte who had that allergy. Lucky had been sent away as its forgot on Eden, something Axel and Charlotte couldn't tolerate. Lucky, however, bore no grudge. Seeing the guests, it instinctively wagged its tail in greeting. I patted Lucky's head affectionately. Silly dog. This is Lucky. I had taken him back after I got married with Clyde. Axel and I first adopted Lucky together on our wedding day, and at the time, Axel had joked that it was our eldest son. But to him, even our eldest son was just an accessory in front of his true love, Charlotte. At that moment, there was nothing more for Axel to misunderstand. Lucky was with me, and with it, it was clear that I remembered everything from the past. I knew we had once been a family, I just didn't want that life anymore. Lucky had left the person who didn't love him and found a new family. On the other side of the lawn, Axel stood with Eden, a resigned chuckle escaping his lips. He forced a polite smile, a hollow expression in his eyes. It seems we really did mistake you for the wrong person, he muttered. Eden's eyes widened as he tried to argue, but Axel pulled him away, cutting off any chance of explanation. A few months later, I received a letter from Axel. In it, he explained that he had transferred all his shares to me, acknowledging that it was what I deserved. Charlotte, lost between reality and memory, had been admitted to a care home. Eden had severed ties with the Song family and moved to England. Axel wished me happiness in his letter, seeing this belated fulfillment as a form of compensation. He hoped I would have a life full of love and peace, much like how I had once given that to them. Sitting on the rooftop with Lucky, I held the letter in my hands for a long time. The city lights flickered in the distance, and the bright moon hung high in the sky. The hum of the world below felt distant, almost surreal. 12 years had passed, 2 marriages, 2 children. Had my parents aged the same way, through the same quiet passage of time? A soft breeze tousled my hair, and then gentle hands smoothed it down. Clyde sat beside me, holding a small cake. Are you upset? He asked, his voice laced with concern. Weren't you angry earlier? I replied, offering a small smile. He hesitated. Okay, I was a little upset, but as long as you explain, I'll believe you. That was Clyde, always willing to be the loser in the game of love, despite his powerful, intimidating presence in the outside world. He was a top underworld boss, yet for me, he would yield, adjusting the imbalances of our relationship just to ease my worries. He feared I would hesitate, that I would be uncertain. He squatted down beside me and wrapped me into his warm embrace, softening the edges of my doubts. I leaned into him, wrapping my arms around him. I was married before, I began, feeling the weight of my past in the words. "Yeah, I guessed," he responded gently. "And I had a child with someone else." "I know," he said, hugging me tighter. "If your secret is just that, I can forgive you. If you miss that child, we can bring him to live with us. Everyone has a past. I only care about your present and your future." I looked up at him, my heart skipping a beat. "But Luna, is there really a future for us in your life?" His question took me by surprise. His dark eyes, filled with affection and longing, held mine as he spoke. "I know you're not from this world. I know you'll leave when your mission is done," he continued, his voice soft but certain. "But I couldn't help myself when I proposed to you. I have my career, and you have your life. I thought that even if you left, I wouldn't regret it, because as long as you're happy, and as long as you want to stay, I'll give you everything I can." Clyde stroked my face tenderly. "But Luna, I can't let you go. I realized it one morning when I saw you and Cyril sleeping peacefully. In that moment, I knew I didn't want to lose you. For so long, I've been fighting and growing, but since meeting you, I finally feel like I have a home." A system notification suddenly echoed. "Mission complete. Host, do you wish to leave this world?" Clyde gave a wry smile. "Go back, Luna. 5 years is enough." A week later, I found myself in a bustling shopping mall in the 21st century, buying clothes for my elderly parents. The rewards from the system for completing my mission had been generous. I'd secured the best nursing home for them and set up their retirement savings. But then, that all too familiar, alarming system sound rang out again. "Danger, danger. The dimensional barrier is breaking. Host, something's wrong. Your husband and son have broken through the dimensional barrier and are coming here. Your system is always breaking down," I muttered, half amused. "Is this really okay?" I turned around to find Clyde holding a tray of crayfish, with Cyril carrying a small cake. Both wore expressions of mild annoyance. "So, you really left when we told you to go? If we hadn't come looking for you, would you really never have come back?" Clyde asked, his voice tinged with frustration. I grinned and pulled them both into a tight hug, along with the dog. "How could I teased, feeling a rush of warmth. With a little nudge from the system, I'd gained the freedom to travel between worlds, and though I had initially planned to settle my parents first, it seemed fate had other plans. Cyril puffed out his cheeks, sulking, while I pointed at my parents, nudging him playfully. "Call Grandpa and Grandma." "Dad, Mom," Cyril said, looking a little lost as he met his in-laws for the first time. The dog wagged its tail energetically, as if sharing in the moment. In this world, I had finally found my complete family.